A lot of people are freaking out over this news. I mean, I would understand why certain people from within Russia would freak out, but I don't get why people from the West are freaking out about it because LGBTQ activism is not allowed in China. It's certainly not allowed in the Middle East. A lot of African countries don't allow it, and yet for some reason, we never talk about that. Or at least I don't see newspapers writing about that. I don't see newspapers writing about how Disney is not making gay characters in their movies because they want to sell their movies to China. No, instead, we get to see news about Russia deciding to ban the international LGBTQ plus public movement. And the way it's being spinned is that you may be in danger if you happen to be gay in Russia. But as an Eastern European, I can definitely tell you that this is not the case. Because they said the same thing when Hungary decided to ban certain activist topics from public universities. Like, you can still teach them, but you have to do it in a private university. You can't use taxpayer money in order to do it. They said the same thing when Poland passed some similar legislation. Like they're always freaking out, and the image that they are creating is that Eastern Europe, and in this case it includes Russia, it's like the Middle East. Okay, or it's like we're going back to communist times, back when the Soviet Union existed. Many people don't know, and this is absolutely hilarious, that communism was incredibly anti-LGBT. Like, we're not talking about persecuted as in, not being able to get a job, or no. Like you would be arrested, you would go to prison. In almost every single Soviet satellite country, if you were gay and it was found out, you'd have gone to prison for it. And there have been many writers and other people being convicted and had served time in prison due to it. So I find it absolutely hilarious when I see certain activists in the United States having a Che Guevara t-shirt next to a rainbow flag. Like you can go on Wikipedia right now and you can see what Che Guevara thought about gay people. And that's why it's so ironic. But therefore, it doesn't really surprise me given the fact that you still see activists being like queer for Palestine and stuff. Like these people are completely disconnected from the world. Like they are some of the most ignorant bigots that I have ever seen. There are people that are chanting in the West, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, I believe is, right? And if you ask them which river, which sea, they don't know how to answer because they genuinely support certain causes that they do not understand. And this is the reason that I'm making the video, is because I want to offer a little bit of clarification. You see, after World War II, the Human Rights Charter is made, and people agree that being judged solely based on your identity is something inherently wrong. Like being judged over the fact that you're a straight, white, cisgender man is not okay because you can't help that. Like those are immutable characteristics that you had no choice into having. Like you were born that way, right? And if it's wrong for you to be judged like that, you wouldn't judge someone else for being a minority or for being gay or whatever. Like you wouldn't judge that. It wouldn't be fair because at the end of the day, it's also counterproductive. Like that person can't change who they are. So there is no solution to the problem, right? So you should judge people based on the content of the character. However, like what do you do when in the academia you have Marxists that decide, well, what if we mix the politics with the identity? So now we have identity politics. And now we have queer theory. So now the identity and the immutable characteristics with the politics, that they're unable to be separated. And you have things where an individual like Carlos Maza, a very famous journalist who started the apocalypse on YouTube, is saying, be socialist, be gay. Like, he doesn't find it possible for a gay person to live in a capitalist society, right? Like, it's the duty of a gay person to try and bring upon socialism, which is the ideology that he prefers. So if you're against socialism, What do you do? Well, do you fire Carlos Maza? But if you fire Carlos Maza, he can file now a lawsuit saying that you're firing him because he's gay. When in reality, you just don't want people advocating for socialism in your capitalist enterprise. So this is the problem that you're having. And this is what's happening in a lot of Western companies where they have employees that are flat out detrimental for the profit of the company. And if they fire them, they get lawsuits. A perfect example would be with Netflix. Netflix got Dave Chappelle to do a bit. And it was incredibly popular. It was monumentally popular. Everyone liked it. The audience was loving it. But now you have like a person from, I think it was like a middle management type of individual. But now you have this middle management figure, which I believe was trans, and they break into the office of their boss while he was holding a meeting in order to show how outraged they are about Dave Chappelle. And then they do walkouts and they encourage other people to unionize and do walkouts, right? So you have this company, Netflix, that's losing money compared to the previous year, and they're trying something new, and it's working, and they're financially successful, and the public loves it, but they're being held hostage by their own employees. And if you fire them, then they file discrimination lawsuits. And then you have like all this investment into ESG and stuff, and you have like this mainstream censorship apparatus online where expressing political opinions, like not going after people or anything, but like if you express a political opinion, you get deplatformed, right? Because it's like no platform for bigots. They're not interested in a conversation. So if they're not interested in a conversation, well, I guess the Russian government isn't either. And this is where we're at. Because other countries in the world, believe it or not, they do have access to the internet. They get to see what is happening in the West. And some of them don't like it. Again, if you have an ideology that believes that the nation state is inherently evil, that the nation state is systemically racist, systemically oppressive, right? If you have that ideology, why should it be funded from taxpayer money? That's what Hungary is asking. It's like, why should our university teach students that Hungary is a systemically racist nation? And you need to decolonize Hungary and etc., etc., right? Like, why would you promote that? Why would you attach that ideology to a person's identity? And you're convincing them, okay, if you are this identity, you have to believe this thing. Like, this is not about the identity. It's about the assigning of a political ideology to the identity and then trying to claim that if you disagree with the political ideology, you're against the identity. And take into account that this identity isn't formed by grassroots. It's not like the people on the ground, they come together and decide what their best interests are. No, you have someone in the academia that decides what the people's interests are. Or like from the CEO of BlackRock said, you have to enforce behaviors by incentivizing people with advantageous loans, with ESG cash. You have to force behaviors into people. And, like Russia is definitely not a liberal government. It's not a place where people have freedom. I mean, I saw during the initial protests against the Ukrainian war, like, a lot of people were persecuted because of that. But at the same time, just because they did that, I do not believe that if you happen to be gay in Russia, you're going to be in more of a danger than if you're gay in the Middle East or if you're gay in Africa. Like, there are places, some countries in Africa where it's actually dangerous to be gay. It's not in Russia. You just can't do the activism. Now, it's up to people to decide whether that's acceptable or not. However, at least you need to understand what's actually going on. And, the interesting thing is that the Supreme Court has banned the international LGBTQ plus public movement. So they're being very gray about it. Like the journalist here doesn't understand what it means. And I do agree that this is a bad way of putting it into legislation. Because law shouldn't be up to interpretation. It shouldn't be like the terms of service of a social media platform. There is no such thing as the international LGBTQ plus public movement. What they mean is woke. But it's very hard to define what wokeness is. So theoretically, you kind of know what they believe to be as extremist, but they have to define it properly. Still, by labeling it as such, what it means is that funding for this type of activism is going to be very difficult to be done in Russia. It means that the people that do advocate for it may find themselves arrested. So it's genuinely like the repressive arm of the state that's going to be directed towards woke ideology. Again, just because it's a gray area, and the way they worded it, I wouldn't be surprised if the same repressive arm isn't going to be directed towards non-woke things. Because this is always what happens when you leave a gray area. This is why legislation has to be strict and concise and to the point. And here it's not. So that is genuinely a reason of concern if you actually want to address this subject from an actually intelligent way, and rather than just claim that, oh, well, how are gay people in Russia going to handle this change? Probably for the average gay person, nothing changes. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.